Okay. Hi everyone. So this is the second part of the lecture on the National Heritage Act 2005, otherwise known as Act 645. Okay. National Heritage Act in Malay is Akta Warisan Kebangsaan 2005. Okay. So this is already the 15th year of the act being adopted in Malaysia or being passed in Malaysia. What happened then? What happens since then? Apakah bentuk? What is the form of heritage protection related to our course that we must learn? So that's what we are going to discuss today. National Heritage Act, as we mentioned, we haven't mentioned, but National Heritage Act is quite wide. The scope of heritage contained in the National Heritage Act is quite wide. It contains both tangible and intangible heritage, but for our course, we are only concerned about the tangible heritage, especially the heritage buildings or the heritage site. Now, what is the aim of this lecture? At the end of this lecture, you'll be able to relate National Heritage Act with heritage building conservation. Okay, now. The first part of the lecture on NHA last week, we discussed about the Burra Charter, which is the basis, which forms the basis of heritage management or heritage conservation management in our country. So I want you to remember what we learned last week. The second one is explain the main NHA provisions regarding heritage building conservation. Okay, so what are the provisions that we need to know? Even though it's a long act, there are only a few sections that we must remember or that we must know that is related to our field. Okay, the first one, the first slide will serve as an introduction. Heritage conservation legislation in Malaysia. So in general, there are two levels of heritage conservation legislation in Malaysia. That is at the federal level and also at the state and local levels. So you have two-tier heritage regulation in Malaysia at the national level and then at the state and the local level. Dua peringkat di situ. So at the federal level, before 2005, we had the Antiquities Act 1976. Akta Benda Purba. So the name also indicates that the act only covers things, objects or monuments or whatever that is of a certain cut off point in terms of age. Only historical objects ataupun buildings yang di-cover that were being covered under the Antiquities Act 1976. And as we discussed before, in the previous lecture, okay, the heritage significance of an object of a building may be more than its history, kan? Kita kata ada architecture, there may be aesthetic punya significance, or could be architectural significance or social or spiritual significance, right? So that's why Antiquities Act 1976 later on was decided it's not good enough. It's not comprehensive enough to cover the challenges to build heritage conservation in Malaysia. So that's why after 2005 there's another act that was passed or that was enacted, which is the National Heritage Act 2005, also known as Act 645. And together with that, together with the National Heritage Act, we also have what we call indirect protection or indirect conservation of heritage buildings, heritage sites in Malaysia through the Town and Country Planning Act 1976, and also the control of, to a certain extent, before its repeal in 1997, okay, we had the control of Rent Act 1966, Akta Kawalan Sewa 1966, which is now has been repealed, dah tak ada, it is no longer there. But at one time, the control of Rent Act, in a sense, contributed to the preservation of pre-war shophouses in Malaysia, or pre-war buildings in Malaysia. At state and local levels, okay, what types of legislations are available? We had the Federal Territory Planning Act, so Act 267, Malacca Enactment Number 6, 1988, Johor Enactment Number 7, 1988, Sarawak Cultural Heritage Ordinance 1993. So quite piecemeal. Dia macam berpecah-pecah kan. Dia at state level there are several other legislation, but they are not known as Heritage Conservation Act or Heritage Protection Act. It's more general enactments pertaining to buildings atau pertaining to benda purba ataupun benda lama lah, historic punya buildings. Now, before 2005, the heritage conservation in Malaysia, there was no comprehensive regulatory framework on heritage building conservation. So we're talking, there's no certain legislation, tak ada akta tertentu yang mengawal ataupun yang contribute to the conservation of heritage in Malaysia, and no specific body that has the responsibility, that has the obligation, that has the statutory power to undertake heritage conservation in Malaysia. Okay, so we had before 2005 the Antiquities Act 1976. The purpose of the Antiquities Act 1976 was to protect listed buildings of above 100 years old. See, the cut-off point is a certain number of years, and they determine that 100 years is the cut-off point for the kind of buildings or the kind of sites that they want to protect. What does this mean? What was the implication to the heritage conservation in Malaysia when we define buildings that must be protected are those above 100 years old? That means that pre-war shophouses, for instance, did not fall under this definition of buildings to be protected, because pre-war shophouses in Malaysia at that time, if you count from the year that they were built, which could be 1940s, 1920s, or whatever, until the year 2005, it doesn't reach, most of them do not even reach 100 years old. So most of the pre-war shophouses or the older buildings or the older historic buildings were not afforded the protection under the main act at that time, which is the Antiquities Act 1976. Okay, and the significance that the Antiquities Act were looking for were historical significance, religious significance, or cultural significance. Okay, historical, religious, cultural. Is that aesthetic? No. Is that architectural? No, kan, tak ada. So more towards the old buildings yang ada nilai mungkin nilai keagamaan, nilai budaya, more than the beauty or the architectural value of the buildings. And also, Antiquities Act was put under the Director General of Museums. Okay, museum saja. So maknanya more on the old things lah kan. Museum is more about preserving antiquities, benda yang lama, benda purba kan, benda yang dah that has some historical value or significance. The second act, okay, that contributed to heritage conservation before 2005 was the Town and Country Planning Act 1976, and to a certain extent, okay, the Town and Country Planning Act 1976 is also used until now in heritage preservation because of the fact that the Town and Country Planning Act, the provisions under the TCPA has been used since 1976 and has been proven. So maknanya dah ada kuasa kan, long established in Malaysia. So the local authorities are more familiar with the provisions under TCPA 1976 rather than some of the provisions under 2005 punya National Heritage Act. And I said just now local authorities, but not just that. Most of government agencies are still familiar with the provision under our planning law rather than our National Heritage Act. So what's the contribution? In what way did can the Town and Country Planning Act 1976 contribute to heritage conservation? The local planning authority can oversee heritage buildings or can monitor the heritage buildings via the local plan and also development control mechanism. They can control the development, the redevelopment of the heritage buildings or the older buildings by virtue of the power given to them to grant planning permission. Kalau katakan bangunan, if there's a case of a building, an old building that the owner wants to redevelop, demolish, rebuild, ataupun do some renovation, do some extension, those activities are known as development kan. So all development activities must obtain planning permission. So in a way, indirectly, the local planning authority can control the destruction, selain daripada total destruction, ini perubahan, amendment, any changes to the heritage buildings within their local authority area. Itulah betul kan, through through the mechanism of planning permission ataupun zoning dan sebagainya, so planning permission lah, development order, kebenaran merancang tu, they can determine whether proposed development may go through or not kan. So in a way they can assess sekiranya if the building has some heritage value, they can say no, ataupun they can say okay, we give you planning permission but with certain conditions. For instance, you may renovate at the back but you must maintain the facade of the building. Hadapan bangunan untuk dikekalkan because we want to maintain the maybe the overall punya heritage environment, heritage value of the area ataupun heritage tone of that particular area. Okay, the third one is Control of Rent Act 1966, as I said before, repealed in 1997. So meaning in 1997, the Control of Rent Act 1966 dah dibatalkan, no longer enforced. Okay. So how did the Control of Rent Act 1966 contribute to heritage conservation? It's like this. Okay. The older buildings, the pre-washout houses, for instance, in the city center, okay, in the CBD at one point, at the older part of the city, they used to fall under this Control of Rent Act 1966, meaning the landlord cannot simply raise their rents above a certain level. The rents were fixed. The rents were fixed, so it means that the landlords are not able to raise the rents to match the market punya rental. So what was the effect? That means that the rental levels were kept at a low level, at a very low level for a long time. Which means that the landlord cannot use any extra money which they could have gotten. So cannot use any extra money to maintain their building, to change their building, to develop the building. Tak cukup. No, not enough money from the rentals. So that is how the older buildings were conserved accidentally, sebab tak cukup duit, not enough money to undertake any improvements ataupun any renovations on the old buildings. But at the same time, the weakness of the Control of Rent Act was not only it prevented the owners from repairing or from developing or from beautifying their buildings, but also prevents the owners from maintaining their buildings. Tak cukup, tak ada repair, so what happens? The buildings fall into disrepair. Jadi dilapidated. Urban decay began to set in those areas, tak elok untuk dia punya environment. So that's why the Control of Rent Act was then repealed, dibatalkan sepenuhnya in 1997. Okay, so the problem with the old system before 2005, before the introduction of the National Heritage Act was, one, only protected tangible heritage. Two, the monuments must be more than 100 years old, then only will fall under the Antiquities Act. And there were different government agencies overseeing the protection of heritage. So you can see Antiquities Act was under the Director General of Museums, Town and Country Planning Act falls under planners, Control of Rent Act falls under the local authority officers. Local authority lah. The control of right, okay, so I have discussed about the effects, the unintended consequence of the Control of Rent Act, which contribute to the heritage conservation kan. So due to the low rental prevented redevelopment, and it contributed to the urban decay of the inner city areas. So tak elok lah. These are the problems. And finally, fragmented system. There's no holistic way of looking at heritage conservation before 2005. Berpecah-pecah, fragmented system. Okay, piecemeal operations ataupun piecemeal strategies were implemented before 2005. So again, the main problem due to in the old system was the protection of pre-war shophouses, whereby the Antiquities Act, like I mentioned before, only protected listed buildings of not protected. It's still here. Antiquities Act is still in force. Okay, it protects listed buildings of above 100 years old with historical, religious, or cultural significance, and it excludes buildings less than 100 years old, and also it excludes buildings of architectural interest. So it essentially means that most pre-war shophouses escape ataupun jatuh, dia telus, dia celuh, dia dia couldn't be contained by the net of the protection afforded by the Antiquities Act. Okay, not protected by the Antiquities Act. So inilah, we can see all these buildings are quite beautiful, right? And they have their own significance, their own values, but unfortunately are not protected under the Antiquities Act 1976 due to the fact that these buildings are often less than 100 years old. Okay? So the only way to protect these buildings at that time was through the planning, planning law, the Town and Country Planning Act. And as you know, Town and Country Planning Act, the decisions by the local planners can be challenged, kan? Can be challenged mula-mula dekat dia punya appeal board at the city, at the local authority level, at the state level, the appeal board. Lepas tu, if they are not satisfied, they can challenge, they can bring the matter to the court. So after 2005, realizing that the system was problematic, the system of heritage conservation in Malaysia was problematic, in 2005, the National Heritage Act was passed. The Malaysian Constitution was amended. Kita punya federal constitution tu was amended because before 2005 there was no mention of heritage dalam list, in the state list or the senarai jadual 9 tu, jadual 9 in 9 schedule. There was no no mention of where of the jurisdiction of heritage. Is it under state? Is it under federal? Is it a concurrent item? So the Malaysian Constitution was amended to add preservation of heritage as item 9E in the concurrent list. What does that mean? Concurrent means both federal and also the state governments have the jurisdiction over heritage preservation or pelindungan warisan di Malaysia in the next schedule. National Heritage Act offers protection of cultural, natural, tangible and intangible heritage. So it's wide, the scope is wide, not only tangible and intangible but also cultural, natural. Natural tu is quite interesting because of the fact that Malaysia has so many areas of natural beauty, kan? For instance, our beaches, our caves, kan? Our mountains. Those are hints lah of the things to come in this lecture. Then it establishes proper management unit and structure. So not only the National Heritage Act, the other scope, the other provisions on what to protect, but also who's in charge of the heritage protection. So the Act establishes proper management unit and also the structure. That is the Commissioner of Heritage that oversees. Dia menjadi satu Director General lah. Dia menjadi seorang ketua pengarah, satu commissioner at the federal level that oversees the coordinates. Dia tengok macam mana dia coordinate, dia selaraskan the heritage conservation in Malaysia. And at the same time, the National Heritage Council was established. What's the purpose? The National Heritage Council normally contains representatives ataupun comprises representatives from the federal and also the state level, so they can come together and discuss things lah, meet, lepas tu decide on things as a group. Tu yang concurrent tadi kan, the concurrent list. So they come together and decide on things related to heritage conservation in Malaysia. Then the Act also establishes a National Heritage Register, which is it's mandatory dalam mana in any system of heritage protection in any country, you must have a register. It's like your land administration system kan. So our land administration system is based on the torrent system, which is based on the register. The register is everything. Whatever is contained in the register will give the rights to the owner, right? So similarly, all countries must have this register, this national heritage register, whereby they list down all the heritage that they want to protect. Dia akan gazetkan, dia akan wartakan. These are the national heritage of the country. So we are affording protection. Kalau orang luar datang, if any outside forces come in and destroys, for instance, our national heritage, that may be considered as an act. Ini satu kesalahan. Kalau katakan dalam war kan, a country destroys another country's national heritage, that country, the destroyer tu just now, can be not the country lah, the person lah, siapa general mana yang order any destruction tu, can be tried, boleh dibicarakan, can be tried at the international court in the Hague tu, kat Hague kan, you can tangkap dia dan boleh not convict, boleh try, kita boleh bicarakan atas kesalahan destruction of national heritage of a country. It happened before. You remember Sarajevo, Bosnia, Sarajevo, tu ada kes kat situ. Okay? And a general, kalau tak silap one of the generals from the Serbian army was not convicted for killing, but was convicted, dihukum sebab dia order destruction of heritage di kawasan Bosnia kan. And it can be quite substantial. Dia punya penalty tu boleh jadi quite substantial. And the proof is there. That's once you can establish the linkage between the act of the order of the general and the destruction, that's it lah. Can convict that particular person. Okay, so establish a national heritage register that contains a list of tangible and intangible heritage that will be properly protected. So once dah masuk dalam register, once the heritage, whether tangible or intangible, is put or is gazetted to be inside the register, these tangible and intangible heritage will be protected dan di bawah national protection, bukan lagi di bawah local or state punya protection, federal. This is quite serious, right? And finally, Heritage Fund was established. So what's the purpose of Heritage Fund? Is to finance, for instance, the operation of the department. 1, 2, to finance research in the area of heritage conservation. Lagi to research the to buat building audits, for instance, ataupun history audits untuk certain tangible or intangible heritage, for instance, ataupun for the purpose of registering our heritage in the UNESCO punya World Heritage Site, for instance. Inilah guna Heritage Fund. But the jumlah tu may not be that substantial. So it depends on the budget, on the national budget. Now the scope is wide and all-encompassing. Dia sangat lebar, sangat luas and very comprehensive. Sangat lebar, sangat comprehensive. Okay? It covers administration and enforcement of protection for both tangible and intangible natural and cultural heritage. Severe penalties to anyone who alters any heritage property without the written approval from the commissioner. So you can see here our heritage conservation or heritage protection in Malaysia. The big boss, the person in charge is the Commissioner of Heritage, Pesuruhjaya Warisan, Commissioner of Heritage. The penalties can comprise fine, imprisonment, or both. Not just that. So kalau sekiranya if we only penalize them to pay certain amount of penalty, they can pay, right? Or we jail them, they can go to jail 1 year, 2 years, whatever. But at the same time, the more important penalty is the second one. The Heritage Department or the Commissioner can get an order of restoration and reconstruction costs. That is the thing that can be substantial. Maknanya, if somebody or if a company or if siapa-siapa pihak, any party alters or demolishes gazetted national heritage building, for instance, they demolish dah. Besides fining, besides imprisonment of these guilty parties, the court may also order the guilty party to reconstruct again. Kan? Tak ke substantial, reconstruct again, to restore. Kalau alter, restore balik. Kalau demolish, reconstruction of the demolished building just now. So that can be quite substantial. Itu yang orang tak nak, of any damage, demolition or destruction of a heritage property. So this is quite a big improvement from the system before the 2005. Before 2005, there's no penalty, no substantial penalty that can be imposed on the guilty party. Siapa yang tiba-tiba dia demolish dia pre-washout house kan, kata oops, dah buat over the weekend, I pay the fine only. Now no more, because they can be fined, imprisoned, and also have to restore ataupun reconstruct the heritage building. Okay. Anatomy of National Heritage Act, there are 17 parts and there are 126 sections. Okay, the first one is preliminary, part 2 is conservation and preservation of heritage, part 3 is administration of the act. Okay, the Jabatan Warisan tu semua kat sini lah. The part 4 is National Heritage Council, part 5 is on Heritage Fund, part 6 on National Heritage Register, part 7 is on Heritage Site, part 10 National Heritage, part 15, kenapa tiba skip? Oh, the ones related to us. The part 15, offences. Okay. Now, my point, heritage site. What did I want to? No. Okay, tak apa. It's okay. We go through. Okay, the first one, the definitions. Okay, definitions that I want to discuss with you. Area. Area under National Heritage Act. What does it mean? Area is defined as works of man, or the combined works of nature and man, and areas including archaeological sites which are of outstanding universal value from the historic, aesthetic, ethnological or anthropological point of view. Faham tak? We understand this? So it means that the definition of area, kawasan warisan, dia kata kawasan kan yang ada nilai warisan. Kawasan tu can be either natural ataupun man-made, or a combination. Okay. For instance, this one, this is Lembah Bujang, Lembah Bujang punya site in Kedah. Also in Perak, we have the Lenggong. Lenggong punya apa dipanggil tu? Lenggong area kat situ kan. So those are areas lah, definition of areas, because they contain this one, outstanding universal value, OUV. Outstanding universal value means, okay, that the value that they put on that particular area is not a personal, bukan satu pihak saja, bukan satu ethnic group saja, not just the people of the country, but also it's universal. Everybody who comes there agrees that the site ataupun the area, okay, contains historical, aesthetic, ethnological or anthropological significance. Dia ada value di situ, dia ada nilai. Nilai apa? Nilai sejarah, nilai estetik, nilai ethnology, nilai anthropology. Anthropology regarding humans kan, ethnology regarding some ethnicity kan, some race lah, ethnic groups. Anthropology, human as a whole, ethnology for the certain people of that area, aesthetic dari segi kecantikan, historic dari segi sejarah. So ada nilai-nilai tu, and must be agreed not by a certain group of the population, not just, for instance, contoh saja, not by the Malay people, not only by the Chinese people, not only by the Indian people of Malaysia, but as a whole. Semua orang, not just the three main groups, main ethnics in Malaysia, but also outsiders, foreigners, when they come in, they say, wow juga kan, adalah, they feel the value. For instance, this one lah, Lembah Bujang, Lenggong, they go there, they see, it has been there for a long time, 10,000 years, 15,000 years, so everybody will be impressed, betul? So itulah maksudnya area. Must be outstanding, dia luar biasa, dia punya value tu. The second one is building. Okay, building is a building or groups of separate or connected buildings. So ini penting. So a building yang stand alone ataupun a group of buildings yang mungkin connected or separated, but they are connected, tapi linked. Dia ada common ground, dia ada common features, iaitu could be architecture, homogeneity, or their place in landscape are of outstanding universal value from the point of view of history, art, or science. So again, here the phrase that stands out is the outstanding universal value. Maknanya value tu, the nilai tu bukan satu pihak, bukan kata dia Jabatan Warisan Negara saja yang agree, but it's universal by the people, by visitors, by orang luar, siapa-siapa lagi lah, outstanding universal value, okay, from history, art, or science perspective. Monument, what is that? Monument, okay, architectural works of monumental sculpture and painting, elements or structures of an archaeological nature, inscriptions, cave dwellings, and combinations of features which are of outstanding universal value from the point of view of history, art, or science. So ini lebih kecil. So this is micro lah, kira yang lagi kecil daripada building, building lagi kecil daripada area. So if you can imagine, area is the macro, the bigger picture. Building is the meso, tengah, meso punya level ataupun yang tengah. Monument to the micro level, the paintings, the sculptures, the inilah kalau kat overseas more familiar with things like stela. Dia panggil stela is the ukiran batu tu. Stela can be monuments. We don't have stelas in Malaysia. The paling dekat sekali if you go to, I think Indonesia, Borobudur for instance, or if you go to Tomb Raider, what is that? Lara Croft, what is the name of that? Tell me later, I forgot. Okay, anyway. Can I remember? Escapes my mind. Anyway, anybody who knows what I'm talking about? Is it in, it's not in Cambodia, right? Is it in Cambodia? Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, what's the name of that? Angkor Wat. Angkor. The sculptures there. Tak payahlah beritahu. Okay. The Angkor Wat, Angkor Wat. Apa nama tu? Monuments, examples of monuments. So I gave you the examples for each of the definition kan. Area can be the Lembah Bujang ataupun Lenggong area in Perak. Building can be this Christchurch ataupun Stadhuis. Ini Christchurch, this one is Stadhuis in Malacca. Stadhuis, Stadhouse, apa dah nama dia. Spelling is S-T-A-D-H-U-Y-S. H-U-Y, okay, is the Dutch word for house, rumah, house. Stadhuis, apa dah macam mana nak sebut. So house tu ialah rumah. So it used to be the residence of, dia panggil apa kat situ, residence of the governor, apa tak tahu. So important people lived there before, used to live there before. Anyway, monuments, example, Tugu Negara. So this is the national monument of Malaysia, Tugu Negara Malaysia. Okay, yang mana ada nilai, this one, sejarah, history. Okay, conservation management plan. So in order for conservation, heritage conservation to be effective, there must be a plan, kan? And the plan must be a management plan. Macam mana uruskan the warisan tu? So then, if the way to protect the environment is through the environmental impact assessment (EIA), satu dokumen kan, whereby you state all the potential threats, the mitigation punya factors, all these things. So itu untuk environment, but conservation, you also must have a similar document lah, and it's known as conservation management plan, which is a plan for conservation prepared under section 46. So some development proposals, they must be together with conservation management plan untuk kawasan yang bersejarah, especially if they concern development inside the World Heritage Site ataupun dekat buffer zone of the World Heritage Sites in Malaysia. Okay, then preservation. What is the meaning of preservation? Preserve is preserve, pelihara kan, preservation, aiming to halt further deterioration, decay or a state of dilapidation and providing structural safety and well-being but does not contemplate significant rebuilding and include. So dia preservation adalah untuk stopkan satu decay, satu deterioration of the building dengan cara kecil-kecilan saja. Dia bukan complete rebuilding. It's not complete rebuilding punya activity. Just an activity that halts further deterioration. They stop the building, the building or the monument or the area from deteriorating. So they preserve. Dia macam inilah preservation kan, bukan ke the concept of jeruk atau jeruk is what preserve lah. Jeruk in English is preserve. How do you preserve your fruits? How do you preserve your vegetables? You preserve the fruit, the vegetable, so it will maintain the status lah. They try to halt ataupun slow down the decay process of the fruit or the vegetable kan. So same with buildings, we preserve the buildings. What is it? What does it include? Techniques of arresting or slowing the process of deterioration, decay or state of dilapidation of an item or structure. So technique untuk arrest, untuk slow down the decay process. Improvement of structural conditions to make a structure safe, habitable or otherwise useful, and normal maintenance and minor repairs that do not change or adversely affect the fabric or historic appearance of a structure. Normal maintenance and repair saja. Preservation. What is reconstruction? Reconstruction is the process of accurately reproducing by new construction the form and detail of a vanished structure. Dah tersilap robohkan, what to do? How do you rectify the situation? You reconstruct, bina semula, reconstruct. Okay? Dengan method dan kaedah apa? Cuba kaedah yang sama, material yang sama, design yang sama. Okay? The form and detail of a vanished structure or part of it as it appeared at some period of time and includes full or partial reconstruction. So this was what happened in Sungai Buloh. Later on, at the end, there will be three case studies. One of which is Sungai Buloh, whereby they knocked down, they demolished some buildings on the site in Sungai Buloh punya laboratorium, pusat pusta Sungai Buloh. So what they did after that was they reconstructed, dibina balik a few buildings there. Rehabilitation, the process of returning a property to a state of utility through repair or alteration, which makes possible and efficient contemporary use while preserving those portions and features of the property which are significant to its historic architecture. Rehabilitation maknanya dia buat adaptive reuse, bukan adaptive reuse. Dia rehabilitate, dia ni kan balik, dia pemulihan. Rehabilitation is pemulihan, reconstruction bina semula. Yeah, so kalau kita buat pemulihan, kita we return the property to a state of utility. Kita kembali, we return back the property to its former situation, its former fair situation kan, through repairs or alteration. Conservation. Now, conservation is the big umbrella. Conservation is preservation, restoration, reconstruction, rehabilitation, and adaptation. Adaptation is adaptive reuse. Maknanya dah sedia ada bangunan tu, we use it in another way. That is adaptation. So that is the best way lah, adaptation. Because you may only have to do some retrofitting. You buat changes of maybe the energy features of the building, or maybe you do some adjustments to the ventilation of the building. But other than that, you keep the original state of the building, the original design of the building, the original material of the building, but only the use of the building you change the use of the building. Boleh buat or combination. Owner. So the definition of owner in relation to any land means the registered owner or the holder by customary tenure of the land. So in some cases, okay, whereby there's no land title, okay, native customary titles kan, ataupun native customary rights. So who is the owner there? The holder, dia tak panggil owner lah, the holder by customary tenure of the land. The kaum mana, ketua mana yang own the land by way of traditional use. National heritage, what is the definition of national heritage? Ini adalah warisan kebangsaan. Any heritage site, heritage object, underwater cultural heritage, or any living person declared as a national heritage under Section 67. So it can be a thing, an object, a place, or a person. Itu yang paling best. A person, living person lah, tak boleh orang dah mati. Any living person declared as a national heritage under Section 67. Ramli Ibrahim is our national heritage. Dah declare dah. Tahu tak siapa Ramli Ibrahim? Bukan Rosli Said. Ramli Ibrahim is the dancer tu yang menari Mahabharata, the Indian punya tarian tu kan. So he is our ni, and a few more yang kita tak pernah dengar nama dia, but they have the skills, the intangible punya heritage skills, which can be dying out, boleh jadi mati kalau kita tak declare orang ini sebagai national heritage, sebab kita nak bagi dia status, bagi dia maybe some kind of not motivation, some status lah, bagi dia status, and then kita boleh take care of that person and actually take care of the skill that the person has. Heritage skill. Tangible cultural heritage, what is that? Area, monument, and building. So this is related to us. Okay, tangible yang tampak, warisan budaya tampak kita panggil. Okay, tangible. Area, monument, building. So the administration of National Heritage Act. So which ministry is it under? It's under the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture, MOTAC. And it's under the Heritage Division, Heritage Division original name, but now it has been upgraded to Department of National Heritage, Jabatan Warisan Kebangsaan, okay, JWK. And the big boss, that in other ministries they have DG kan, Director General, but here we have the Commissioner of Heritage. It helps the National Heritage Department, the National Heritage Department. Okay, as per Section 6, his duties are to set up and maintain the Heritage Fund, administer the designation, registration, categorization, and maintenance of heritage objects, liaise and coordinate with state and local authorities in heritage conservation matters at the regional and local levels. So dia punya main task are coordinating, overseeing the heritage protection of our country. The National Heritage Council advises the Minister and the Commissioner. So under Part 7 of NHA is the heritage site, build heritage conservation, okay, Part 7, whereby we have sections 31, 32, 31. We start from 31, I skip to 36 and 38, the important ones. And further down, you will see 33. 31, 33, 36, 38, the important ones in terms of heritage site ataupun heritage protection for heritage site. Okay, Section 31 of National Heritage Act, the Commissioner can designate, dia boleh menamakan, designate any atau mencalonkan any site with natural or cultural heritage significance to be a heritage site and record the designation in the heritage register. So penamaan ataupun pencalonan of the heritage site comes from the commissioner. Dia sign lah maksudnya, bukan dia sendiri yang pergi or whatever. The officers will propose to him, dia akan check and he will sign the designation, the penamaan pencalonan tu. Once he designates the site with natural or cultural heritage significance, the designated site can be registered. So lepas tu dia registered di dalam heritage register. This is followed by a gazette notification and filing at the land office. Kenapa? Kenapa pergi ke land office? Why? Must be filed at the land office because the designation of a heritage site will be followed by a dealings restriction on the site. Kan? If you are a landowner, nak ke? Do you want your site to have this dealings restriction? If you have a dealings restriction on your land, that means that you cannot freely sell your your property, your land to another party. Bukan tak boleh langsung, can. But there are restrictions, there are hurdles that you must jump. Kita mesti dapatkan kelulusan somebody else besides the pihak berkuasa negeri tu. Ini lagi satu Commissioner of Heritage yang kita mesti dapat kelulusan dia. Ataupun at least inform. Now, what kind of dealings restriction? A designated heritage building has dealings restriction that is must inform the transaction to the commissioner. So okay lah, commissioner cannot prevent the dealings from happening, but the dealings must be informed to him under section 36, and once informed, the commissioner can negotiate. Ini yang penting, negotiate. Dia boleh prolong the ataupun dia boleh cause the original dealing from by the original owner, by the owner and the third party just now. Boleh delay lah sebab dia boleh negotiate. They can lengthen the time of the closure of the sale ataupun lease just now. They can negotiate with the owner of for inspection, maintenance and site conservation and preservation, purchase or lease the site. Dia boleh offer pula duit. If kalau katakan ada satu dealings, a proposed dealing on the site, the dealings must be informed to the commissioner. Commissioner have a say, bukan have a say, have an option untuk offer to buy or to lease, pajakkan the site daripada owner. Acquire, ini lagi serius. Acquire the site under any written legislation that allows acquisition of the land for public purposes. So dia boleh gunakan apa? The Land Acquisition Act 1961. Takutlah, because Land Acquisition Act, okay, once you apa nama tu, you have identified the site, your objective of acquisition falls under 3A, B, C, that's it, you can go ahead and acquire. If you lawan, if the owner lawan pun, the owner can only object apa nama tu, in terms of the area to be acquired, area, size of the land to be acquired, ataupun the compensation amount. The owner normally can object to the acquisition itself. So maknanya diambil secara paksa, will be compulsorily acquired by the government. That's it. No negotiation then. Okay, so itu power commissioner. That's the power of the commissioner. And another power is to move all or any part of the building or monument on the site. So dia boleh purchase that particular monument or building that can be movable. It's move. All buildings can be movable. You katakan permanent building kan, but actually the whole thing can, if you use the relevant technology or the available technology, you can shift the building on its, kecuali a very tall building kan. I'm talking about reasonably traditional punya buildings ataupun monuments ataupun things that can be moved lah. Janganlah cakap pasal tall buildings. Of course, those cannot be moved. But once purchased by the commissioner ataupun once dia dah negotiate with the owner untuk dapatkan the monument ataupun the building, dia boleh shift, move the building to another site. So this was what happened to rumah penghulu Abu Seman in Kedah. But that happened before the National Heritage Act. But anyway, it's a good example. Rumah traditional is a traditional Malay house, rumah penghulu Abu Seman in Kedah. They dismantle the thing, Kedah ke Penang, cannot remember. They dismantle the whole house, they mark lah 1, 2, 3, like Lego, 1, 2, 3, and then they brought to the site of Badan Warisan. Boleh dibuat kan? You can transfer the Badan Warisan at Jalan Hampang. So you move the whole thing across the states in Malaysia. How many states? 1, 2, 3, 4 states in Malaysia. Can be done. So as at 17 August 2012, there were 47 national heritage buildings. Why is my date so long ago, 17 August? Because of the fact that I went on the National Heritage Department punya website, couldn't find any list. And I Googled, they said okay, some indicated 49 national heritage buildings in Malaysia, but cannot be verified. I cannot verify. So this list, this number from this date was the last date when I positively confirmed the number. When I went and checked on site a few years ago, the date was 2012. Also, there's a paper on the conservation of heritage buildings in Malaysia, which was dated 2012. Sama juga lah. It mentioned 47 national heritage buildings in Malaysia. Okay. And heritage buildings are unique and contain high architectural and historical values. So in Malaysia, it includes the railway stations, schools, temples, institutional buildings, all this. Semua inilah in Malaysia. So the protection of local heritage buildings lists different local authorities use slightly different categorization generally. So at the local level lah. So just now was at the national. So now I bring you to ini kita menyimpang sikit segue kita at the local level, okay, list them according to categories. Different local authorities use slightly different categorization. Okay, dia ada yang sebut kategori A, kategori B, kategori C, or kategori 1, 2A, 2B, 2C, category 3, something like that. They use different standards or different benchmarks to categorize the buildings, and generally comprises the highest grade, which has the most important heritage values, and lesser categories to represent buildings of lesser heritage importance and values. So yang grade A tu the highest heritage values, to the C, kalau C tu less important lah. So same across Malaysia. Semua local authorities guna this kind of categorization. The degree of works allowed by the local authority on these buildings will depend on their category. So the higher the building, the higher grade the building in terms of heritage values, the lesser works can be allowed on the building. That's the rule of thumb. Okay, we go to the next one. Case study. Case study number 1 is Vivekananda Ashram in Brickfields. This happened 2015, sorry, 2015. The case of a threat on the heritage value of the ashram. Ashram, what is it? Nanti kita tengok. Vivekananda Ashram, Kuala Lumpur is located on lot 33, section 72 along Jalan Tun Sambantan. Bukan ke? It's very close to us, so you can have a look later on if you manage to come back to campus lah. Brickfields, very near to us. The ashram was built by the Jaffna, the Sri Lankan Tamil immigrants in 1904 in honor of Swami Vivekananda. So this is the name of a person, the Swami dia. Swami Vivekananda. The site accommodates the ashram building. So this person is an international figure. Tapi dia buat satu ashram to honor this person, the Swami Vivekananda. It accommodates the ashram building, the site. Ada satu ashram, ada satu hostel, there's a partially completed auditorium and a bronze statue of the Swami Vivekananda. So it's a significantly sized site. Sebab dia ada banyak benda. Dia ada ashram, dia ada hostel, there's a partially completed auditorium and bronze statue. Itulah atas the site. So in draft KL 2020 plan, and this is the local plan for KL. Sekarang dah ada yang baru, but we're talking about the last time because it happened in 2015. So draft KL plan 2020 plan, the ashram is identified as a category 2 heritage site. However, the draft local plan to draft KL 2020 was never gazetted. So maknanya it was used as reference by the local by the DBKL punya planning unit, but the local plan, the draft KL 2020 was never gazetted. Maknanya tak pernah diwartakan. If it's never gazetted, maknanya dari segi law, it has no effect by right lah. Kalau ada apa-apa boleh challenge. Anyway, 2008, the Heritage Department proposed to gazette the main ashram building as a heritage building, but it was not pursued further due to objection from the ashram trustees. In 2015, the ashram trustees decided to sell the land to a developer to be developed with a 23-story service apartment. If you can see, it's a very strategically the location is very strategic, sangat dekat dengan kita punya tempat yang favorite kita, which is Mid Valley, dekat situ, Mid Valley, all the areas dekat sangat, very next door saja kepada Mid Valley. Not just Mid Valley, what's the New Central, that area, New Central dan sebagainya, dekat kat situ. So you can see ashram, hostel tu semua low rise kan. So there is a higher and best use, not highest, a higher and best use that can be proposed on the site. So in this case, they said, okay, kita nak sell the land and redevelop it with a 23-story service apartment. Because the demand is there. The community protested because they want to protect the ashram. The community ni, the surrounding people, people at the locality. Because of the inilah ashram. Just now I kan, what is the ashram? Ashram. This is the ashram. Ashram tu is a macam a spiritual, a gathering place for spiritual purposes. You masuk ashram tu nanti you boleh buatlah meditation and other things lah dalam ashram. Okay, so you can do yoga, meditation, or whatever related to whatever spiritual activities that you want to do. Itulah guna dia. So if you say meditation, kan, if you say yoga, you need an environment which is conducive to your spiritual activities just now. If you allow the area to be developed with, this macam contoh lah, high rise punya service apartment kan, where can you get this kind of peace kan for your spiritual punya activities kat tempat tu. So that's why there was an objection from the local people, because they want to go there and pursue lah whatever they have been doing for this while. So this is the ashram. Our university is here. Ada lagi tak ada outside the picture, but it's here lah, towards here. Kan, this is the Bukit Bangsa, this TNB semua kat sini. Very near us, you can see So it's a very prime area. New ni betul, New Central kat sini. New Central kat sini. So you can see very apa nama tu? Very strategic area. So better can be seen here. Here, on the southwest of from the site, southwest direction. Anyway, so this was the petition by the local people. They want to save the ashram, save our nation's heritage, save the ashram. Dia kata berapa orang? At that time 21,000 people have signed the petition. So inilah dia punya significance kat sini. So they don't want, they said don't want this service apartment. They want to maintain, or they want to preserve the original ashram on the site. Okay. So what happened was 15 July 2015, the National Heritage Department decided to designate the whole site as a heritage site. So what is the implication of designating just now? Remember I mentioned dealings restriction kan? Can be imposed. Once the site has been successfully designated as a heritage site, after that any dealings, any proposed sale, proposed leases of the building must be informed to the commissioner. Commissioner pula, once they know of the intention to sell, intention to lease, they can use the Acquisition Act untuk ambil semua. The implication, restriction. So 7 October, but that was just a few options kan, that the commissioner has. They can also negotiate with the owner to sell to them, to lease from them as well. Okay. But 7 October 2015, the ashram trustees wrote a letter of appeal di Merayu kepada the Tourism and Culture Minister. At that time was not Motek, they under Tourism and Culture Minister. 13 November 2015, okay. A month after that, the ashram trustees filed. Before getting any answer from the minister, okay, 1 month later, the ashram trustees went and filed a judicial review action. Judicial review adalah semakan kehakiman, judicial review on this, the designation tu. Dia minta stop kan, dia minta tengok court, dia minta the court to look at this designation, this proposal to designation the whole site as a heritage site. Okay. So they filekan semakan kehakiman judicial review to the High Court to challenge the proposal to designate the whole site and designate only the ashram's main building so that they could develop the surrounding land into the 23-story service apartment. The minister at this point has not decided because the letter was sent October. So November, immediately before waiting for the answer, they went and filed a judicial review action. So my questions, or the questions that arise from this: 1, can the trustees argue that the heritage site should only be constrained to the ashram building because the remainder of the land has no heritage value? Tak boleh, cannot. Just now it says it gives the context. The land, the surrounding area gives the context to the ashram. The ashram is a spiritual place. It needs the land untuk the ashram operate, untuk dia berfungsi lah. Kalau ada service department, the ashram tu dah jadi lain. You don't have the environment needed for a spiritual retreat. Can a High Court action be taken by the trustees when the minister has not yet considered the letter of appeal? Jawapannya kat sini. The court ruled in February the following year. The High Court ruled against ashram's trustees leave for judicial review as the application was considered premature. Belum dapat keputusan, you nak appeal apa? As it was filed before the minister decided on the letter of appeal. But eventually, the minister refused the appeal and maintained the site as heritage site. So mula-mula the court kick out the application, dah tak boleh file the judicial review application. Then at the same time, minister tak setuju, menolak rayuan, maintain the site as heritage site. But in May of the same year, May 2016, an EGM was convened by the ashram trustees. Ini pemegang amanah the ashram tu, where it was decided to withdraw both cases at Kuala Lumpur High Court and Court of Appeal. The Jabatan Warisan Negara, the National Heritage Department, then proceeded with the gazetting. June 16, 2016, when the ashram was officially designated as National Heritage Site. So masuklah, sudah diwartakan sebagai National Heritage Site. Confirm. So if you look at the link, okay, this is the news on this official status of the ashram. Apa ni? No. Tak apalah, you just have a look later on, okay? So it says that this is the news on the. Anyway, so next one. Okay, we come to section 33 IPO. So there are two cases that concerns interim protection order. So what is the IPO? The provision for the commissioner to make interim protection order under section 33. What is it? It says there, okay, subsection 1, upon a notice being served on the owner of a site under subsection 27 sub 1, the commissioner may, with the concurrence of the state authority, make an interim protection order in relation to a site if, in the opinion of the commissioner, it is necessary to do so for the purpose of conservation and preservation of the site. So, IPO, perintah tu, protection, perintah pelindungan sementara saja, interim. But the effect is it immediately freezes any activity on site. Dia dah jadi satu macam caveat pula, kan? If caveat is on paper, this one is physical. You cannot conduct any construction, any development work, anything. The owner dah kena stop work on the site immediately. So basically, it's an order to stop undertaking any work or activities on the site which contains heritage property. And under section 33, any person who contravenes an IPO commits an offence. So what is the purpose of issuing an IPO? One is to stop, and if there's a construction, katakan, if there's a construction site, and the heritage commissioner finds out that there are objects of heritage value on the site. Contoh, ada aduan, contoh kan, ada two cases we can see ada aduan daripada public. There were complaints from the public ataupun reports from the public to the National Heritage Department that there may be some objects of heritage value on the site which is currently being developed or being constructed on. So they stop work, and the National Heritage Department can call in any agencies ataupun any organizations to come in and conduct excavation, contohnya on site. Dia boleh panggil, contoh USM punya, dipanggil apa? USM archaeology. So the archaeology department of USM to come in and conduct archaeological digging, digging on the site. So dia buatlah kajian dia. For how many days? Depending. Ada yang up to 90 days, 3 bulan. Boleh stop work. Kan? So for a developer, a 90-day stop work order on the site is very substantial. It can be financially substantial for them. Kan? So that's why they, for some developers, they fight. Okay, the first case study, the second case study. Sorry, this is the first case study pertaining to Section 33 IPO. The Sungai Buloh Leprosarium, pusat kusta Sungai Buloh, atau pusat kawalan kusta negara di Sungai Buloh. Also known as the Valley of Hope. That's kan nama dia, Valley of Hope. It's the most, it once was described as thus. Ini cantik kan, very nice. Dia lembah tau, it's a valley. The most well-planned area for lepers in the world as a complete town. Very conducive and humanitarian in nature. It is a model for lepers in other countries as well. And also a pioneer for the discovery of the vaccine to prevent leprosy, which is obtained from the juice of the setumpul fruit. Now, what is it? What is kusta? What is leprosy? Leprosy is a disease. It's caused by a bacteria, bukan virus, bacteria. The bacteria is not rapid. Dia tak cepat. Dia slow. Dia punya action tu very slow, but it can affect it can result in nerve damages, for instance. Nerve damages boleh affect tissues. Nerve tu kita punya saraf kan, tapi at the same time tissue damages. Dia boleh bagi daging tu buruk. Tu tak? It can cause tissue damages. Contoh bila your tissue, bila daging ni dah buruk, it can fall off. Dia boleh jadi kudung kan. So that is a very terrible disease. Due to the fact that at one time there was no cure for leprosy. Tak ada cure, tak ada vaksin, tak ada cure for leprosy. Anybody who contacted leprosy, yang dipanggil leper, all the lepers, pesakit kusta tu, normally in other countries they will put the person on an island. You go to the island and you die there, like that. Okay, I'm not talking about the non-developed world. I'm talking about developed countries, developed economies. Japan, for instance, they do that. For people with leprosy, they just ship them off to somewhere else and duduklah kat situ, duduk diam-diam dan tunggu your death. Kan? It's terrible, but it's similar to what's happening now lah. COVID-19 tu, once there's no vaccine yet, but thank God there's rawatan. There's ways to manage the symptoms. Thank God. Okay? But leprosy at that time was very serious. They were so afraid that of the infectiousness of the disease. So they letakkan at one remote area for the patients to just die. But in Malaysia at that time, this particular planner, I cannot remember English planner, he designated an area which is quite far from the city area, Sungai Buloh at that time lah. Now it's quite near kan, but at that time there was no network of highways during that time, so they say okay, we put them here, at least it's not really a desolate area, bukanlah satu tempat yang jin bertendang. Dia adalah dekat dengan city tu, it's quite near to KL kan, but it's self-contained. At least kita boleh prevent the spread. We just put them in a self-contained area. We give them, we create a community for them. Kita buat pasar, we create a market, a wet market, dry market, bank, post office. It's a mini town lah. If you go there, you can see until now the wet market, the places of worship. Ada temple there, ada surau, ada macam-macam lah. I went there twice already. It's quite nice. Okay. Anyway, and it was at this site at the Sungai Buloh punya pusat kusta where they found the vaccine, the first one in the world. Imagine dalam dunia tu they found the vaccine here in Malaysia in Sungai Buloh. So it contained this significant historic value kan. So itulah kenapa kena protect this Sungai Buloh punya settlement, leprosy settlement. Okay. But what happened was, in what year? I think 2000, cannot remember, 2015 ke? During that time lah, when the Ministry of Higher Education, the MOHI, kita punya KPT, they wanted to build the UITM hospital, UITM punya pusat perubatan. We have our own, we have the PPUM kan. So UKM has the PUKM. So UITM at that time were only starting their medic punya program, medical program. So they wanted to have a hospital of their own. They proposed a site in Sungai Buloh. Okay, so they started building a public university on the site, but the National Heritage Department, this is one ministry, this is under another ministry, right? So it was a clash between two ministries, two public authorities at that time. So normally, if we think about heritage protection, we think about how the government is protecting the national heritage from the market, from the public, from the private sector. But in this case, the National Heritage Department was protecting the Sungai Buloh site again from the Ministry of Higher Education. Okay. But swiftly, sebab the commissioner received report from some members of the public that some contractors are on site and they were demolishing some buildings on the site. So immediately, the National Heritage Department issued an IPO to stop the construction work. So the result was, after that, they gazetted the Sungai Buloh Leprosarium as a national heritage site, and there were 3 original buildings that were conserved and 4 new buildings. This one, reconstruction. Remember reconstruction that I mentioned just now? So 4 new buildings were constructed that comply with the character of the settlements, were built on the site. Another case study is the Siaboi. I hope I pronounced this correctly. Siaboi site in Penang. Okay, Siaboi. Siaboi is a market area. Used to be a market area. Very old market. I think in the 1800s before. Yeah, it was established in the 1800s. Yeah, Penang itself is an old city, right? Remember, so called discovered by Francis Light, 1794. Apa benda lah, not discovered. It was there. Penang has always been there. You don't need Raffles or Francis Light to come and discover Penang. Anyway, okay, the facts of the case. Siaboi Market site is a 5.5 acre parcel of land along Prangin Road. Okay, so Penang punya land is quite valuable, though, because of the fact that land is quite limited. Land supply is limited on the island. Kan? You can see at the back, ini the Komtar dah ni, Komtar. So it's not within the city centre, it's not within the World Heritage Site punya boundaries, it's not even within the buffer zone. This site, it lies outside the World Heritage Site buffer zone. By right, they can freely redevelop the site, but during the construction on the site, they wanted to build, there was a proposed development on the site, very substantial, I think 100 million or something like that, the whole development, the GDP. Anyway, during the construction, okay, they found a lot of artifacts in the mid-2016. Some artifacts were discovered during construction work on the site, and what happened was this group, in August 2016, Penang Forum, which is an NGO, they sent a letter directly to UNESCO, not to the state government, not to the Jabatan Warisan Negara, but directly to UNESCO punya site, UNESCO punya heritage site. That's a site, because for all World Heritage sites, UNESCO will establish their site office at the World Heritage Site. So the Penang Forum, they sent a letter directly to the UNESCO, to the office of which is at the heritage site, asking them to look into the matter. UNESCO contacted the National Heritage Department, not the state authority, but directly at the federal level. They go to the National Heritage Department. If the UNESCO contacted the National Heritage Department, that means that there's a serious risk to the status of the World Heritage Site. And dia punya risiko is very big if you just ignore a warning letter, a warning from the UNESCO. Okay, so the immediate action by the National Heritage Department was to issue a Section 33 IPO. The National Heritage Department issued IPO. Okay, so this was a site construction, kan nampak before, and we found some artifacts, and the State Department was not happy about it. Ada apa nama tu? Ada sedikit sedikit what do you call it, not conflict lah, but they were not happy of the fact that the Penang Forum went directly to the UNESCO. Went directly to UNESCO or the UNESCO office, site office. They said, why not come to us and tell us about the artifacts and things like that. But never mind, because the outcome of this is quite good. Because this is Sia Boy now. After the IPO, after they stopped work on site, they did some excavation, they established the historic, the whatever significance of the site, the heritage significance of the site. They managed to turn the site into an urban archaeological park. And this urban archaeological park, they market it as the first one in Malaysia. And this now has turned to a tourist attraction. Win, win, win. Semua orang pun win. So this is the situation now. You can see, quite nice as compared to before. She is like this, right? She's like before. Anyway, that is your boy. Okay, so that's the remainder of my, that's the end of my lecture. I want you to go to, okay, this one, you go to Spectrum, and then on Spectrum, I want you to read all these articles. Quite nice. I think the articles can give you some more information on heritage preservation or conservation in Malaysia. So having said that, I conclude this lecture with happy learning. Okay, don't forget lecture 1 and then you go to this lecture. Okay, bye-bye. Share.